Hi, my name is Dr. Tom Hunt. I'm an associate professor in psychology at the University of Derby. I lead the maths anxiety research group there, which is kind of come about through quite a few years of researching maths anxiety. I have a general interest in psychology and maths education, but I would say I focus more on maths anxiety research, which I've been doing now for probably 17 years, I would say. Really starting about through more experimental work as I would say a cognitive psychologist. I'm very much interested in the kind of cognitive mechanisms that might explain the link between maths anxiety and performance. So just to give an idea of some of the work I've done before, that would be things like electroencephalogram work, looking at brain activation, eye tracking work, for example, looking at what it is that people focus on when they're doing mathematical problems. I've looked at the role of intrusive thoughts, so how they might impact maybe certain working memory processes, especially attentional control and executive processes. And I've also done some work around psychophysiological reactivity as well in children. So, for example, identifying the link between how children's blood pressure increases in line with their level of maths anxiety. Over the years, I've been involved in various developments of new scales to measure maths anxiety. So, for example, the Maths UK, which we validated on a large sample of undergraduate students. I've since included a more kind of specific measure of calculation maths anxiety. And also, I've been involved in work around the development of a maths anxiety scale for children as well. We're currently looking at kind of revamping that ever so slightly. I've been involved in various kind of intervention studies. Because it's one thing trying to understand maths anxiety, but we obviously need to try and figure out ways to address it as well. So I've recently been doing some work with schools, workshops, for example, with teachers, workshops with students, and then recently the development of a kind of workbook approach that tries to integrate various relatively simple strategies into one kind of approach. Some of the recent work that I'm involved in, to give you an idea of the kind of things that I do, I've been doing some work abroad, so particularly in Turkey and Uganda, very much linked to the idea of supporting developing nations, so kind of focusing on the United Nations global objectives for sustainable development, with a particular focus on quality and inclusive maths education. So trying to look at what those kind of socio-cognitive affective barriers are to maths education. So looking at kind of poor resources, maybe gender bias, differences in gender beliefs around maths, and also differences in attitudes, so kind of perceived importance, perceived value, mathematical self-concept, mathematical resilience, as well, of course, as maths anxiety. I've been doing some work around trying to quantitatively address previous experiences of maths, so maybe looking at things like cognitive appraisal. So how people who are maths anxious appraise previous experiences of maths, and we found some evidence to suggest there is a kind of a mediating role of those appraisals when we look at the link between maths anxiety and attitudes. I've done some other kind of experimental work recently around actually modifying people's appraisals, so altering instructions, for example, before a math task. I'm currently leading a cross-cultural survey involving several countries. So at the moment, I think we have around 6 or 7 countries on board. So Turkey, possibly Romania, I think, Iran, Pakistan, Uganda, Brazil, Japan. So quite a few different countries, different cultures, trying to understand some of those differences and similarities between those cultures around maths anxiety, maths attitudes, maths attainment, but with a particular focus on some of the things that haven't really been fully addressed before. So looking at things like social norms, looking at the role of shame, motivation, and maybe some of the kind of school, peer, parental pressure that might in some way contribute or interact with maths anxiety. I also have an interest in statistics anxiety, obviously a very kind of close relative to maths anxiety. So I've done some kind of qualitative work and quantitative work around that. And I'm currently leading on a project that tries to understand the link between stats anxiety in undergraduate students and their attitudes towards critical thinking. So maybe trying to understand why it is that so many students on different courses are anxious around statistics. I also have a more kind of recent interest in metacognitive processes, and that's something that I'll be looking at in the coming months. So quite a range of areas of interest really, but all around maths anxiety and those more general kind of cognitive and psychological processes associated with math learning and math testing.